Realism and Naturalism 1. In the 19th century, a group of French artists turned away from classical subjects to depict pastoral scenes of everyday life. Jean-François Millet and Rosa Bonheur painted outdoor scenes of peasants, farms, and domestic animals. Their inspiration came from nature instead of the more traditional subjects taught in art schools at the time. This painting right here is called The Gleaners by Jean-François Millet. It's oil on canvas, 1857. This is Plowing in the Nivernais, The Dressing of the Vines by Rosa Bonheur, oil on canvas, 1849. The French Revolution of 1848. In 1815, a constitutional monarchy imposed by the European coalition that had defeated Napoleon Bonaparte took part in France. But the newly restored Bourbon kings had no intention of sharing power with an elected legislature. They curtailed civil liberties and greatly restricted voting rights. In February 1848, Parisians rose up in a successful revolt against the monarchy. They elected Louis Napoleon, nephew of France's first emperor, as president of their new republic. But tensions soon surfaced between the middle-class urban radicals and the unskilled workers and rural poor. Karl Marx, who witnessed the uprising and published his Communist Manifesto the same year, viewed the revolution as a class struggle. The very idea frightened the bourgeoisie and turned the government in a more conservative direction. Within 3 years, France again succumbed to dictatorship when President Napoleon crowned himself Emperor Napoleon III in 1852. Bourgeoisie, the middle class. Here is looks like an ink drawing of the elected president of France's Second Republic. Louis Napoleon soon abolished the republic and declared himself Emperor Napoleon III. Perhaps it is a photograph, a daguerreotype. Realism and Naturalism in France. Jean-François Millet was born in 1814 to a family of peasant farmers in Normandy, France, just a few decades before the Revolution. Encouraged by his father to pursue his artistic ambitions, Millet attended the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. His early work consisted of portraits and genre paintings. Genre paintings, an artwork that depicts a scene from everyday life. Millet and his wife and children left Paris, in part to escape a cholera epidemic that swept through the country following the Revolution of 1848. They settled south of the capital in Barbizon, a farming village surrounded by a vast forest called Fontainebleau. Many realist artists had gathered there to form a counterpoint to the predominant romantic movement of the time. Collectively, they became known as the Barbizon School. In this painting, after the Revolution of 1848, Millet was inspired to record the lives of poor rural workers as seen in the Angelou. A painter of rural life. Away from the city and the demands of prevailing artistic tastes, Millet began to paint rustic scenes capturing the rugged life of peasants at work. Millet and other artists working in the style of realism took scenes of contemporary everyday life as their subject matter and portrayed them with honesty, not idealization. Millet and his fellow painters of the Barbizon School found inspiration in the quiet beauty of rolling fields, lush forests, and the simple country life. They turned away from the formal subjects and styles that had been forced on them in art school. Instead, Barbizon artists painted landscapes, objects, and figures as they really appeared. This style, closely linked to the principles of realism, was called naturalism, since the artist's chief inspirations were nature and the physical world. This painting, The Gleaners. How does Millet's The Gleaners exhibit characteristics of realism and naturalism?
Jean-François Millet studied scenes of contemporary everyday life and portrayed them realistically and honestly. He often walked through fields surrounding the village of Barbizon, sketching farm workers at their daily tasks, including the back-breaking chore called gleaning. After the autumn harvest, landowners allowed peasants to go through the fields, collecting leftover bits and pieces of the crop to supplement the peasants' meager food supplies. The Gleaners is probably Millet's best-known work. In the foreground, 3 peasant women gather the field's last remaining morsels of wheat. Millet's skill as a naturalist is such that the Italian gleaners in this 1908 photo appear as though they might have served as models for his 1857 painting, The Gleaners. The setting may be picturesque, but there is nothing idyllic about the activity that Millet presents. In the warmth of a pastoral autumn afternoon, 2 women, their faces obscured, bend low to find usable pieces of wheat, while a third woman bundles longer stalks. Millet gives them a monumental quality that conveys the dignity that he saw in their labor. The figures, rendered with thick brush strokes and muted, earthy hues, seem almost rooted to the soil. Their skin is dark and weathered. Their wrists and hands are thick and powerful from the arduous work. Millet paints the 3 gleaners large and at eye level in the foreground, and sets them against a vast sky. He eliminates all unnecessary details that might distract from the figures and their strenuous labor. The artist paints the figures, haystacks, and cottages in the background as bathed in the light of the setting sun. The late afternoon sun raking across the figures gives them a sense of sculptural solidity. The shadowy gleaners stand out against the golden setting. Millet used earthy hues throughout the painting for a sense of unity and to create a quiet mood. The sunlight accentuates areas of color on the laborers' worn clothing. The solid shapes and simple lines of the laborers, bent over as they work, form repeating curves that add a sense of movement to the composition. A supervisor on horseback oversees the collection and transport of the harvest. The haystacks signify the abundant harvest and highlight the division between the classes. The laborers, able to gather only mere handfuls of the crop, destined for sale to others. True to his realist and naturalist roots, in The Gleaners, Millet captures the back-breaking work realistically and honestly, with fidelity to the natural world.
An unwelcome social commentary. The Gleaners was not well received at its Paris unveiling in 1857. In the aftermath of the Revolution of 1848, the upper classes, as well as the middle classes or bourgeoisie, detected political criticism, perhaps even a Marxist message, in Millet's respectful treatment of society's most downtrodden members. Short on funds, Millet sold The Gleaners out of desperation to an Englishman for 3,000 francs, well below his asking price. In 1889, more than a decade after Millet's death, the painting sold at auction for 300,000 francs. Rosa Bonheur was born in 1822, the eldest child of a family of artists in Bordeaux, France. Her parents belonged to a militant religious socialist movement that advocated equal rights and education for women. Bonheur fared poorly as a student, however, and was expelled from several boarding schools. After a failed apprenticeship as a dressmaker, she began to study painting with her father, Raymond, an accomplished landscape and portrait painter. The traditional path for talented budding artists, attendance at Paris École des Beaux-Arts, was closed to her. Female applicants were not even considered for acceptance at that time. Because Rosa Bonheur was a woman, she had to learn her art without the schooling available to aspiring male artists of her time. The artist as feminist. Rosa Bonheur felt a deep sense of gratitude to her parents for her enlightened upbringing. She was especially influenced by her father's utopian idealism and belief in social equality. Later in life, she wrote, "To my father's doctrines I owe my great and glorious ambition for the sex to which I proudly belong and whose independence I shall defend until my dying day." Bonheur's Plowing in the Nivernais. Commissioned by the French government, Plowing in the Nivernais, the dressing of the vines, is one of Rosa Bonheur's most famous works. The The Nivernais is a region south of Paris in central France. Against a wide-open autumn sky and bucolic landscape, two teams of oxen are tilling deep furrows in the rich, fertile soil to aerate it, while farmers guide the animals in a straight row. Like Millet, Bonheur portrays contemporary farm laborers with dignity and realism and honors rural agricultural traditions. Humans and nature in harmony. Bonheur emphasized the hard work of breaking the soil in the way that she modeled the oxen's thick shoulders and bowed necks. The drivers and plowmen seem almost insignificant by comparison. The soulful eyes of the working animals glance in the direction of the viewer as if to underscore the connection between human beings and the rest of the animal kingdom. To further suggest the connection between man and beast, Bonheur's painting is massive, 5 feet 9 inches by 8 feet 8 inches. Imagine standing in front of it, trading glances with the immense oxen. Bonheur's father and brother were also artists. Explore all in the family's activity on the next scene. All in the family. Auguste Bonheur. Rosa Bonheur's younger brother, Auguste, was also a skilled artist in the naturalist tradition. His extraordinarily lifelike painting, shown here, resembles and bears the same title as Rosa's work, Plowing in the Nivernais. His painting is much smaller than his sister's version. It measures only 24 inches by 40 inches. Clara Clement, a well-known 19th century American art critic, wrote of Auguste, "Like his sister, he paints oxen with remarkable truthfulness, but in her overshadowing frame, that of the brother has been lessened, and he has not always received the praise justly his due." Painter of animals. Like many other art students of her time, Bonheur spent countless hours mastering her skills by sketching and copying museum artworks of the great masters. Her real passion, however, lay in painting horses, cows, rabbits, and other animals from real life. To facilitate his daughter's interest, Raymond Bonheur moved the family to a street on the edge of Paris, close to farms, pastures, and woods. Here, Rosa Bonheur found inspiration in the animals that inhabited the countryside around her. To increase the elements of realism and naturalism in her work, Bonheur studied animal anatomy firsthand by making detailed sketches at a slaughterhouse and by dissecting animals at a veterinary school. Learning about the structure of different animals' underlying muscles and bones helped her accurately render living beasts. Her careful study of animal anatomy helped Bonheur accurately render these oxen to appear natural and realistic. Women weren't supposed to frequent meat-packing plants or dissection labs, but Rosa Bonheur was nothing if not determined, and she almost always got her way. She cropped her hair short and wore men's clothes because she found it easier to work in them. Bonheur, however, paid scant attention to people who talked about her unusual conduct. "The epithets of imbeciles have never bothered me," she said. Composition. Rosa Bonheur created a simple, classic composition and Plowing in the Nivernais, the dressing of the vines. The shape formed by the teams of oxen is repeated in the shape of the earthen field. The strong diagonals of the oxen teams lead the viewer's eye across the painting. The strong midday sun bathes the scene with light and gives the oxen and laborers a sense of solidarity and timelessness. Bonheur composed the painting with strong diagonal lines that lead the viewer's eye across the scene. Quiz. What subjects did Barbizon painters prefer to paint? They painted pastoral scenes with farmers and peasant workers. What characteristics of naturalism did Rosa Bonheur use in Plowing in the Nivernais, the dressing of the vines? Portraying objects in the natural world as they really appear. How did Jean-François Millet, the Gleaners, exhibit characteristics of realism? Millet rendered the figures in muted, earthy tones. How did Rosa Bonheur hone her skills so she could paint animal anatomy and realistic detail? She dissected animals at a veterinary school.